Yeah.
It's you.
6 seconds.
6. 5.
Oh.
Let me call the Berkeley City Planning Commission to order for its regular meeting of Tuesday, February the 23rd, 2016. Would you all please rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Smith,
Here.
Murad,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
Pop,
Here.
Buckler,
Present.
Morel,
Here.
Tangari,
Here.
Burnett.
Present. Now entertain a motion to approve the agenda this evening.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Murad. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Commissioner Pop. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote.
Tangari,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Buckler,
Yes.
Shadle,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Morel,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Burnett.
Yes. Now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting of January the 26th, 2016.
Chairman,
Martin Smith.
approve them, or move to approve
Your
'em.
motion approved?
Yep.
Second?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Richardson. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Morel,
Yes.
Buckler,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Shadle,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Tangari,
Yes.
Burnett.
Yes. Any communications?
In your packet, you have DDA minutes, a letter from Brad Strader indicating that he is leaving LSL, manual on parklets, and some communication I had with departments regarding that, an article on Airbnbs, and you did receive a postcard from a resident.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the meeting for any citizens' comments. Any citizen who care to address the Planning Commission on any topic not on our agenda, they may step up to the microphone at this time and state your name and city of residence. Citizens will have an opportunity to participate in discussions as we move forward this evening. Seeing no citizens rushing to the microphone, I'll close that portion of the meeting, and we'll move to the order of business. Ms. Vanson?
Item number 1 is discussion regarding proposed residential form-based code. We last talked about this in November. Kathleen Duffy of LSL, I gave her the minutes, and she's incorporated those changes, and I've also summarized them in my report.
So what are our next steps here exactly?
You just have to decide if you like it, and if you like it, then I think porches are still sort of a wild card, but the rest of them, I think, are pretty set. The map, I believe, is set, and I think the next step you all had talked about is doing some kind of open house, once you guys are all okay with it, and but if you're not okay with it, then it wouldn't make sense to do an open house.
Okay, what is the desire of the Planning Commission?
Oh, you mean in the thing.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Martin Smith?
I noticed one thing on here. We talked to some length several months ago about side yard setback on a secondary street, 20 feet for a townhouse.
Yes.
Should flats can be a larger building, bulkier, taller. Should that not also be 20 feet instead of 15? Just bringing that up.
So you want it 20 feet for the exterior side yard?
Side yard, just asking, on a secondary street,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure I understood.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just for comparison's sake, and maybe we discussed this, and I don't recall, that happens occasionally, more than occasionally. Just bringing that up.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
just so I understand, so you are proposing, just for discussion's sake, that building placement for townhouses and flats be the same?
Well, we talked about townhouses.
We did.
Yeah, as being a large building, and we
Right,
pulled
right.
it back a little bit. And flats, by their nature, is a larger
But
building.
that's what you mean, right?
Right.
That's what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that that might be a good way to go? Okay, I just want to make sure I understood
Yep.
you. Okay.
Yeah, that seems like they should be treated the same way.
20
Anybody,
feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet.
anybody agree on this? Mr. Gary, you agree?
Yeah.
Ms. Buckler? Ms. Shadle?
Yes.
Mr. Morel?
Yeah.
Mr. Murad?
Yep.
Ms. Pont?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Far be it from me to.
Okay, I guess we want to change
I
it to
agree.
20. Let's change it to
Mr.
20.
Chair?
Mr.
Maybe
Sure.
we do it for the duplexes too, duplex, triplex. Because we have that right now is 15 feet if it's on a
I
corner.
think that would be, at least it's uniform.
Consistent, 20 across the board.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
The only reason I would say not necessarily is by just, again, by its nature, it can be a large building, but it's not as large as
Townhouse.
the townhomes or the flats. And, but Mr. Muirhead has a point.
But it can be on a corner.
And if it's on a corner.
I'm just talking about a
20,
bulk,
right?
it's just the whole bulk
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Flipping through here, comparing them. Because we do say under C, building form and massing, 2.5 stories, maximum height 30 feet for duplex, triplex. Then we go to 40 feet and 40 feet for the other two, and that's the thing, just to step it back a tad. It is a different building.
And actually, in the single family, Mr. Chair, in the single family, we don't address corner lots for setback.
Oh, we should say the outside rear
Yeah.
yard, yep,
Mhm.
you're right.
Yep.
And what is it in our current
10 feet.
10 feet? Okay.
So when we add corner lots to single family?
The single family,
Yep.
then I'm fine. If it's 10 feet for single family, I'm fine with the 15 for the duplex then.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's a step, it's kind of a.
All right, so we got two additions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Richardson?
It's a question, really. In terms of the setback requirements on corner lots, is there a accepted industry standard practice for the distances, or are we pretty much totally using our own discretion on this?
It's been 10 feet. We did change, most recently, we changed corner lots to have a graduated setback. For the longest time, it depended on how the corners were arranged, if you had them like this or if they were like this.
Right.
If they were rear yard faces a rear yard, it was 10 feet. If it was a rear yard abutting a side yard, then it had to be 25 feet, which definitely impacted how many buildable corner lots you had. Now, for the most part, the city's platted with rear yard abutting rear yard. But sometimes you get them like this, and that, what the Planning Commission and City Council decided to do was to change it all to 10 feet, but depending upon how far away, you couldn't have, say, if you were happening to be the next house facing this way and the side yard was over here, their garage couldn't be right in your front yard. It had to be 35 feet away. So, so we have a graduated standard.
I'm clear on that. I'm just sort of double checking to make sure that we're within accepted zoning and planning
I
standards
think
with
it's,
these distances?
it's the way the whole city's been developed at 10 feet. And, you know, if you wanted to look at what other cities do around the country, they may be different. But I think it's been 10 feet for as long as the city's been incorporated. And if you were going to change it to 5, you get into issues with even less of a driveway, even less of a view backing up if you actually happen to park in your garage.
And the duplex, triplex, and townhouse, and
Those are a whole new form. So I would defer to LSL on what they've said and what would fit,
Okay.
you know, contextually in Berkeley. And we had a lot of, she's done a lot of analysis on what's going to make sense for Berkeley, what's going to fit if you start combining properties. And we've met with developers to say, okay, what would work and, you know, whether it's marketable even, because there's no point in doing all of this if, you know, you can't build it anyway.
thank you. That answers my question.
Other questions? I have one.
Yeah.
When you say 18 inches, we're talking about the ground floor finish level. Minimum of 18 inches above the sidewalk with stairs. Which sidewalk are we talking about?
Public sidewalk.
The public sidewalk. That's interesting.
Well, that would be the sidewalk, not the service walk. I mean, that's how I would read this. I will get clarification from Ms. Duffy on what she interpreted that as, but sidewalk is the public walk.
Yeah, the articulation.
Not the service
is
walk that's
the
coming
ins
up
and
too.
outs and ups and downs.
That's interesting because my front surface walkway that goes to meets the main sidewalk. I had it replaced here 2 years ago I had it redone in brick. And when they were laying it out and looking at it, that sidewalk is 18 inches
On a hill,
above the front sidewalk before we even get to the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Step up from
So
your
you think she
sidewalk.
means service
then
walk?
it rises, it goes up, and then then at the edge of the front sidewalk at the house, at the porch, it goes up 18 inches.
This is minimum.
So you think she means service walk immediately before the landing?
So that's my question that I'm asking. Which,
mine
is-
what are we talking
Mine
about?
are like, I
Well,
have 5
sounds like
steps.
based upon what you've said, that probably that is what she meant.
Okay.
But I am thinking that we need to clarify that.
Okay.
Since obviously,
Yeah.
if I'm thinking sidewalk is the
Yeah.
public walk, and
We were all
the writer of
amazed.
writer of this means service walk, that's a problem.
Yeah, you could wind up with some fairly low houses if you
Right.
actually measure
The
from the
hilly yard.
sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah, because traditionally,
Big
you want the
basements,
grade sloping away
Sure.
from the house. So
Right.
I know
Exactly.
my house,
Yeah, your house has
Well,
quite a slope.
well, mine has a huge slope, but then my house my basement's only 4 feet deep too. You know, it's an old Michigan-style basement
Yeah.
in my house because it's so old. So,
Okay,
Okay,
all right, we'll get clarification.
that was my only
Okay.
comment about it.
Really?
Anything else from anybody?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to discuss the porch stoop, or
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the word terrace was used in our notes somewhere as well this time.
Here we go.
yeah, this is going to be.
Yeah, our current language says a porch or paved terrace. That's what the ordinance currently says. Um, We have some proposed language, and then Ms. Duffy had provided the town of Bluffton as an option as well. And then I just thought it was really interesting when I Googled porch versus deck, the imagery.
Yep, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah, and I would say
Yeah.
there's only one stoop in all of these pictures, in my opinion.
Well, I didn't Google stoop.
Fairly, well, that's the, yeah, that's the dichotomy.
I can
of
try
the
that
issue.
next time, see
No, no,
what
no,
we
no,
get.
no, 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 no.
Well, we're looking looking at your porches, I would say one or two of them, I'd almost call them stoops.
Well, I thought it was interesting, when we had talked about, when we were trying to figure out a
one's a
stoop
stoop.
versus a porch, and we had talked about it in terms of the door width. And then looking at this town of Bluffton, they did in terms of the house.
Yeah.
I thought it was just interesting. Negative versus positive.
Occupies a certain percentage of the front of the house.
I meant to mention that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the one concern on the porch language that I have is 5G.
Which,
Which page are you on?
the one that she had
He's,
proposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
This
All right,
proposal.
we're on that one.
I gotta find that.
5, where are we at?
I don't want people screening in their front porches.
Oh, so we're looking at Bluffton. Oh, yeah, no. No, I don't think we would want that.
Yeah, that's,
I thought it was interesting, the depth, and then, again, like I said, the length. We had talked about it in terms of, the, a multiple of the porch, or a percentage of, or not the porch, the door, but this is of the building frontage. The height, they have a 30-inch minimum. We've already talked about 18 inches, whatever that 18 inches is measured from. And, again, we do allow them to, they call it the build-to line. We talk about it being within the front setback. That's not a problem. We've never counted stairs. I don't think we would want to start doing that now. And our discussion had been, whether that porches, sounds like by default, they want porches covered in this Bluffton one, but stoops don't necessarily have to be.
Yep. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So then a, quote, deck-style porch would be like a big stoop. That's what started all of this. We were talking about stoops versus porches, and when I had talked to the building official, he went, the DIY crowd really likes their deck-style porches. And so I drove around and kind of looked at what I considered to be more pleasant to look at, and so you've got my kind of takeaways on that, that's certainly not, that's just me. It's not any best practices, that's just Amy looking at it and saying, well, that works, that doesn't work.
So what do you want to do,
And-
folks?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Martin
And
Smith?
I think we discussed this last time, and I believe Amy's right. It has a lot to do with the railing. The design of the railing makes it look like a deck. And you look at these two sheets, and there's definitely, when you look at decks versus porches, especially decks, there's an obvious consistency here of what constitutes a deck railing is mostly
Color does
I
too.
think it's
by.
the color.
two by, well, I think it's, color could be it. Yeah, it's painted white on all these, and it's not necessarily decorative on the decks.
No.
It's more of a safety railing on the decks. And maybe I'm saying that wrong. It's not as decorative on the decks. So, I think you're right. I think it could be color.
Yeah, what hit me first was the color, and then when I
Yeah.
started looking at, okay, what was, I think definitely you wanted to have, like I said, the finials and that sort of thing. It
Looks
just made it
woody.
look more finished. But again, this is, as it's been pointed out in our discussions, as we're kind of pushing and pulling with this, that the idea with this form-based code was to allow additional housing types within a neighborhood context that didn't stand out like a sore thumb. We can decide to just keep the porch language the way it is. And, I know there was a lot of discomfort with becoming the aesthetic police, and if we don't know, I don't think you should go forward with the code if you don't have a really strong feeling that it needs to be fixed. You've got what the current language says, under where it says current language, section 138, 191. That's what we currently say, you know, we don't allow it to be covered or enclosed. And if you're okay with that or can't find a good reason to change it, if it's not something that needs to be fixed, then I don't know that. I'm not necessarily, you know, I don't want to, you guys obviously are going to recommend what you want to recommend, but I'm not getting a strong feeling from you guys that you really want to, that it really needs to be fixed for the purposes of allowing duplexes and townhouses in a contextual manner. I think the townhouses are going to come before you anyway for site plan approval. And a duplex, we have a lot of requirements in here already. And as you've pointed out, if you want the duplex to be contextual, does it make sense to have it not fit in by having the fanciest porch in the neighborhood, let's say?
So what do you want to do, folks?
Mr. Chairman, if we
Shadle?
maintain the current language, should we at least add the ADA compliant language? Or is that implied?
It's not required on residential, right?
Not in a single family.
A landing's required, though. It wouldn't necessarily need to be barrier-free, but a landing's required, and
And railings are required at a certain height. I think it's 18 inches above grade.
18 inches, I think you do have to have a railing.
and we've always allowed ramps, because, well, that's just the right thing to do.
Okay, are we,
Porch is going to stay as is.
yeah,
Yeah,
sounds like we're going to keep porches as is and what have you.
Okay.
Okay,
Keep.
That's consistent with my
other
Okay.
issues?
prior position.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Martin Smith.
and I know we discussed this. When we talk about window area, I'm going back to the architectural design of these single-family duplex, triplex townhome. 20%'s a lot of glass
Where are we at? Where are we?
for
seeing
the
20?
flats. Someone who does this more often than me set the 20%. And I don't want to, I know we talked about it, you know, we're at 17% on the townhomes and 13% on the duplex, triplex. And I don't know what the right answer is, and I probably said that before in past discussions, but if somebody comes in at, much like we do in the commercial district, if someone comes in with a fantastic design at 18%, it's within our discretion to change that, I would imagine, so.
Yeah, it says that at the
Yeah,
bottom.
but that's 20% is a lot of glass. Especially for traditional-looking designs, which all these little isometric drawings depict. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that.
One thing I do recall discussing in regard to that is that building articulation frequently calls for the upper floor windows to be a bit shorter than the ground floor windows. So having the same standard for the upper floor windows as the ground floor windows seems like the wrong call to me. It seems like you should have a slightly smaller minimum for the upper floor, for each upper floor, because that allows them to do that shorter window on the upper floors and the
Creating the
longer window on the lower floors.
Well, again, this says
Do
the
that on the
minimum
It's a-
first floor window
Minimum.
area.
Minimum.
Right, but it also says minimum upper floor window
Upper
area
floor.
right below it.
On flats, it says minimum upper floor.
Oh, I'm
Fine on
sorry.
the townhouse.
Apologize, I'm on the wrong page.
Flats is problematic.
So the flats, that 20% shouldn't be 20% on the upper floors. It should be 15 or something like that.
But wouldn't it be 20% overall? It wouldn't be per floor. They're looking at 20% for this,
For the primary facade.
and then everything
Yeah.
else would be.
You're looking at the whole facade.
So take off the difference between the floors.
I mean, that might make the math a little hinky, but I
I
think
think
it works
20%
out
is
that
fine.
it's
Well,
a whole lot less glass
I wouldn't argue.
on the
with
upper
it.
floors, everything above.
It says minimum first floor window area.
Right,
we take
and
out the
then,
difference
Right, I'm
between
taking
first and
that to
second.
mean
Just-
minimum upper floor window area as each floor.
oh, I don't think so. I think it's all the rest.
We just-
I mean,
Not
that's a
very-
good
it's
So
not very
second
clear
and third
if it
floors,
is.
Through
upper-
whatever.
Yeah, okay.
But you're right, that
But-
could be interpreted either way,
Yeah.
so
Just
that's
as
another
upper.
question.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
would-
not very clear.
Yeah, and townhouse says, just refers to the first floor window area. So there's an inconsistency between A, B, C, and D here, just from the nomenclature, because that only refers to, for single family, it talks about primary facade. The duplex,
probably fine.
triplex is primary facade. The townhome talks about first floor window, primary facade. So maybe there's needs to be something cleaned up here a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay. Let's clean it up.
Just call it minimum window
We will get
area.
clarification.
Yep.
Make sure it's crystal clear.
That's why I brought that up. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Morrell?
I do have one question, and it's got to do with the Article 5, our R1D Neighborhood Residential District.
Go ahead.
And the question that I have is regarding point number 2, item C. It says basically duplexes and triplexes in the following locations are allowed and essentially at a corner lot. But item B says along a collector street, and the collector streets are defined over here. And I'm trying to understand where we might have a corner lot that's not on a collector street. Unless you're referring to some of these more esoteric, like the corner of, say, Eaton and Cass.
It could, yes.
So,
Yeah.
Or your lot.
but it does, it's
Right.
R1D, not R1C.
Right.
Okay.
So it could be on a corner that's not on a collector.
But my point would
But-
be is that if you go ahead and color in all the ones that aren't, you aren't really just extending the name of collector just farther in the same direction? By their very definition, collectors are opposed to the main streets. So, to the residential streets. So find me a spot where two residential streets come together where this would apply, and in fact, you're just really redefining that one of those streets then again as a collector. And I point out Larkmore as an example. If you look at Larkmore, we define it as a collector, or excuse me, not Larkmore, I'm sorry, Cass. If you look at Cass between 11 Mile and Larkmore, it says, well, that's a collector street. But then I have north of there, Oxford, Eaton, West, all of those lots on either side of that street would be corner lots and therefore would be subject to the same rule. And so all I'm saying is, aren't we just extending the collector up to Catalpa then? See what I mean? It just seems like,
Well, no, because townhouses are allowed on collectors.
Okay.
But duplexes would be allowed
Anyway.
more places
so that's what
than
you're
a
saying,
townhouse
is
would be,
you're
yes.
using that to define
Right,
where townhouses are not permitted.
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this list in the sidebar here is going to be integrated, I assume.
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's actually going to be under definitions, and I had given her that, but we had kind of worked that out, so she didn't
Okay.
Right.
resend it.
Okay. All
I
right.
had defined, because we already defined major thoroughfares for the purposes of municipal parking lots and that sort of thing, so we had major, and then collector, and then anything else that isn't these is a local.
Right.
I have a general question about how this will integrate into the ordinance when we're all said and done.
It will integrate.
It
There's
will.
gonna- Well,
It'll be.
I don't think that Muni Code is going to be able to do it. I think in my discussions with the city attorney when we first started doing this and the city clerk, I think because of how we're going to want it to look, that's not really what Muni Code does, despite perhaps their best efforts and the discussions I've had with them early on with this. So I think what we will end up doing is kind of doing an adoption by reference and having it in a separate document. I think that's what's
Okay.
going to end up happening. So this will be part of Muni Code, and then we'll have an item saying C, just like we do with the building code. We don't put the whole building code in our
Okay.
code, we adopt it by
I
reference.
get- Then my question then is, we reference parking, that you need to look into the main code for the parking.
Right.
Should that not be integrated into this document as part of a form base?
Well, it can. I mean, that's fine. We say two. I think the reason why they usually say, see this item for parking standards is because then you end up writing how big the spaces are and how
I know, and
everything
that's,
else.
I
So it
realized
gets
that I
kinda-
was gonna open that can of worms.
Right.
But if you're doing a form-based code.
Well, we're kind of doing a hybrid, though. We're not
Yeah,
doing
I
the whole
guess we
thing as
are.
a
I guess
form
it
base.
is. Yeah, I guess we are. I
Maybe
just-
$100,000, we'll do the whole thing.
Yeah, I suppose if we were rewriting the whole code, then we would deal with it. Okay,
We've tackled this section, next time.
yeah,
we'll go another
okay,
section.
all right. It just seems that I gotta go back and forth, and I thought the name of the game was to have a document that you could look at, and it would be all there.
Well, yes, but
It's.
I think just the nature of it, you're going to end up having some
To go
back
back
and
and
forth.
forth.
You
Okay.
just are.
All right.
We were just talking with somebody today that you have to keep reading. You can't keep reading until you
Gotcha.
find what you like.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. Anything else, folks?
I think so.
Anything else? Then I guess we've given you some instruction.
Yeah, I will
Okay.
get some answers, and we'll bring this back in March, and then if you guys want to talk about, at that point, if you still want to do an open house, and...
Can we talk a little bit about that open house?
Absolutely.
Because I'm curious about, I know we talked about doing an open house, and I'm sort of in favor of it. I guess my question is exactly, how would we go about the open house?
You guys all talked about it.
I know. So I'm talking about it. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking.
Okay, you were
What-
looking at me like it was my
Well,
idea.
I guess my question is, if we do an open house, are we going to have LSL there or no? Or is it going to be just us defending it?
Who else would there be? LSL? Being those strangers from outside who have crazy ideas?
They helped us put it together. And I guess what,
I mean, I think, you
I'm
know,
not sure how you would present this. That's what I guess was what
well,
my,
I'm trying to think, when we did the master plan, we had, you know,
Yeah, we
we had one
had-
representative from LSL,
Yeah.
but the rest of it was you guys talking to your neighbors and fellow citizens about it.
Usually if one of my clients is going to have an open house, we have somebody there. That's
Right,
how
well,
we
and
typically do
Kathleen
it,
said,
so.
you know, once this is all squared away, we can talk about the open house. I'm just remembering when we did the
Okay.
master plan, you know.
I remember we
Tom
did
was
it.
there in one room doing kind
yeah,
of a
we
spiel.
did it in at the library, I
Right, we
think.
did the library, and then you guys had some boards and were in
Yep.
another room, and.
Yep, that's exactly what
You
I
guys
was.
were kind of
okay.
like a cocktail
Okay.
party without the cocktails, you guys were.
Right,
And without the party.
yeah. Okay,
Festive.
that was my
Yeah.
drift. Okay, all right,
So I'm thinking it would be sort of similar. You'll have some boards, and
okay,
we'll advertise and
okay,
see what happens.
all right. We can do that.
Okay.
All right. Then I guess we move on to item number 2.
Item number 2 is discussion regarding future projects and the DDA's plan update. So the DDA has to update its plan, and David Sabuda, the finance director, and I are in the midst of putting in all of the numbers and defining everything the right way so it can be renewed. The DDA had looked at the list of projects that Mr. Sabuda and I had outlined and had updated numbers on. And Mr. Sabuda was meeting with them, and there was some interest on the DDA, the committee's part, of asking you all if you had any additional ideas for projects. And so they just wanted to ask your opinion if there was anything that you saw that was missing or something that you thought that they should tackle.
I have a question after reading it, and I had talked to David Sabuda, and I know Marty did too. I have a question on page 2.
Okay?
Now I gotta find it. Where am I looking? They have listed holiday lighting district-wide. When they say this $20,000, are they looking at that number over the entire period of this document, or are we looking at it at a cost of 1 year? And
Typically, these have been, I know Mr. Schuler our DPW director, had put in a price per year, and David had corrected it to have it be overall cost. But 20,000, it would have to be a per year.
Well, that's what I thought, but I didn't know how you were reflecting that.
Yeah.
Same as Rubina Concert Series.
Yeah, the Rubina Concert Series falls.
That's per
I
year.
think those are
Yep.
all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those were the only comments I had on the, I
Okay.
didn't
I will note that,
see anything.
corrected.
Seems pretty straightforward to me, otherwise.
Mr. Chair, we have a question on
Buckler.
the traffic signal at Coolidge at Franklin.
Yeah. Where's Franklin?
That's only a block south of Wilshire.
I know.
What would we signal? It dead ends in Coolidge. It doesn't
Yeah,
go
it's a
both
T
ways.
intersection.
It's a what?
It's a T intersection.
No, I know. It dead ends at Coolidge. So
Dead
like,
ends.
what would
That
we
was
signal?
when we did the Coolidge traffic study. The businesses on Coolidge were concerned about the municipal parking and the fact that there were not enough places to cross there.
Oh,
And so there was discussion on whether it should be at Dorothea, which is hardly a T,
right.
barely a T, or at Franklin.
Okay.
And so, but there was definite interest on the part of the businesses at the
I
time.
see.
To have some sort of signal, whether it was a full-blown signal or a hawk signal that could be activated by a pedestrian.
okay.
Something like that, that would allow for pedestrians to be able to safely cross.
I see.
And not,
Okay.
because nobody seems to want to go to the corner.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, what exactly are they asking us? Like, so I've gone through and kind
If you
of.
had any ideas, additional
Add
ideas,
to it or
or
anything?
if you found something
So
missing.
one of my ideas, even back in the days when I was on the DDA, was at Coolidge and Dorothea. Vacate the street, turn that whole area into a big parking lot. That should be a project.
Okay,
I know that the property there is owned by Camelot Cleaners, but I think you can work something with him to create a nice big municipal parking lot there. And with what they had just done back behind by the ball field there, but in the alley, it all would kind of tie together and be a nice big
Wow, they did
municipal
back
parking
here.
area.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Martin Smith?
might that be covered under the last one, street closures?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but, I mean, I'm glad you brought that
But-
one up, and there's obviously,
Call it out, I mean.
that
we have-
specific location is a great location, but there may be others, so.
Well, we called out the Robina Plaza, so we
Yep.
can call out the Dorothea
Call
parking,
that one
that's
out.
fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Pop?
I agree that we do need to do something with that little street Dorothea. And it's nice that that rusted, unclocked structure is gone. There's a bright orange cone marking the corner where it used to be. But there still isn't any way of people knowing that there's parking back there.
Right.
Well, we have wayfinding in here as well.
That's probably in wayfinding.
Yep,
Whenever that happens.
Yeah, but at $71,000, 500, it's,
I have a
would
question.
be money well spent.
Mr. Richardson?
On the first page, 4/5 of the way down, property assemblage, purchase, demolition, or renovation, 1.5 million. Does that refer to anything specific?
No.
Or is it just to
No,
cover yourself for any
it's just to
of it?
cover yourself in case. It's a 20-year plan, and you never know. Nobody's got any intention of burying utility lines, and Mr. Sabuna and I had this discussion, and he says, put it in, you just never know. It's a
Yeah.
20-year plan, you never know. So that is really just to cover you.
Would the same be true of the traffic calming pilot project? Again, that's just a contingency?
Well,
or-
my idea, there's been enough discussion about Coolidge and whether it's the parklet construction, which, I've talked to the Chamber of Commerce about, and now you guys have it, and I've distributed it to staff, or if it was just a temporary striping, maybe on one weekend or, a series of Saturdays. Decide you're going to do something fancy on Coolidge and try it out. I think that should be in here, and the cost, if the DDA decides they want to try it for a weekend, it's here.
Who has to authorize something like that?
Council would have to okay it, just like they would if there was, whether it was Cruise Fest or Art Bash, it would be some sort of temporary closure. There would be, obviously a cost associated with it. There's going to be some traffic control issues that would have to happen for something temporary. But if the money's in here and if the DDA says, this weekend in June, we're going to do this and try it out and have a parklet construction contest, like, some sort of, what did they do they used to do that. They had the cardboard boat regatta in Port Huron. Yeah, so you could do something like that and do, there's money in there to cover the costs for public safety and DPW to deal with the traffic control, just like for Art Bash.
Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Tringari?
Item number 2 on page 1, does that include possible reconfiguration of the lanes on Coolidge Highway between 12 Mile and 11 Miles?
A
that we
total
don't-
reconstruction.
Yeah, so we don't have the zigzag around the spaces and,
That's a total reconstruction.
okay, so the possibility of, say, 2 travel lanes and a turning lane would be there.
Well, that's a whole other matter. This would include a total reconstruction, and the striping and where stuff would go would be the least of it, but it would pretty much be from front building setback line or front building line to front building line, the whole thing's getting redone.
Okay, so the possibility of a reconfiguration is baked into that then?
So, no, it's not necessarily baked into it. I'm not
Well,
going to
yeah,
say
but
that.
it's-
I'm saying that whether it's 4 lanes or 3 lanes, the same amount of
Right.
concrete's going to be put back,
Okay.
so.
Right. Just wanted to make sure that possibility was there.
Ms. Pop?
I just have a question about, back to holiday lighting. How come the holiday lights came down so early this year?
I don't know.
Because I was through Birmingham the third Thursday of January, and everything was still, all the way down Old Woodward was lit, and it was beautiful. And January is a dismal month. And it's dismal for business and everything. And it just seems that it's nice to have some light. And I'd like to see it go longer. And there was also the corn stalks that the Berkley Junior Women's Club put up, left really early too. And I was just curious as to why. And why does it have to be so quick?
Don't know. She's writing
I'll
it
ask,
down.
I don't know.
She's going to write it down there.
Okay.
Other comments?
Chair, I noticed, Ms. Vanson, in your report, talk about the reauthorization of the DDA for the next 20 years.
Yep.
And that these projects will be in the plan, projected they'll be in the plan that long. I assume there are ways to modify and amend the plan along the way. It's not.
There are.
It's not like this is the 20-year set of projects and that's it.
There are. I mean, it's not an easy, you're reauthorizing everything. So yes, you can do it, but the idea is that you want this to kind of be anything and everything.
And they don't need our approval to amend the plan, is
No.
that right? This is sort of a courtesy review on our part.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Shadem?
Sure. You know, if, given that thought, if we're kind of putting additional thoughts on this, just to put them in the plan if
Sure.
they ever happen. And we're talking about the traffic signal there at Franklin. I know it's come up many times in our meetings and outside of this meeting as well. Putting some kind of signal there by the library on Coolidge. So, you know, Beverly and Coolidge, be that a full signal or a crosswalk or something. I don't see any reason why not to add that to this list.
Okay.
Agreed.
I still want one at Dorothea.
Anything else?
Just one other thing. I think this is covered, but I just want to make sure. In the various items up to including the traffic calming projects, I'm assuming that if another traffic counting study is done or a road diet study is done, that is within the contemplation of this line item, or should we add it as an extra thing?
Well, you have plans and studies. So
Okay.
if the DDA decides in 10 years they want to do another Coolidge, you know, if something changes and they want to do another one, then that's covered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, I guess we're there.
Thank you.
So we got through all that. So the next thing on the agenda this evening are citizens' comments, and I don't see any citizens rushing to the microphone, so I guess we'll move on to liaison reports. Chamber?
Chamber, I did attend the meeting on February 10th. Let's see, Art Bash is scheduled for June 11th. Currently, and actually this year, for the first time, they're doing online registration. And they currently have 66 artists booked,
Wow.
Wow.
with the final submission for booking is April 1st. So they're well on their way. There is still a lot of discussion about an Oakland County Irish Fest to be held in Berkley in September. I think the plan is, it goes before the city council in early March.
Haven't seen any application.
Be a one-day event. So if it happens, they're gonna do like a sidewalk sale and some sort of treasure hunt, and things like that, so. And, let's see, they're working with the, or no, that was just an idea of working with the school district to do some sort of a student art show. And I'll do the design for the Cruise Fest T-shirt. And then maybe some sort of scholarship for the student that wins, so. That is about it.
Okay. Ms. Pop, anything?
Yes. Under public comments, Doug Dietz was there, and he spoke about the community garden and how well it was doing last year and what was donated and so forth. And he asked DPW that he needed some more garbage cans. And he's been trying to encourage the students to pick up after themselves and not make a mess over there. And then the other part that they talked about a lot was, again, the budget. And Mr. Sabuda gave a presentation on that. And then there was also a comment about the rodent control services. As Berkeley, as we know, we have some critters. And that needs to be handled. And then back to the Robina project, there was a proposal for a temporary closure of Robina at 12 Mile and see how, to test it out longer than 30 days to see how it would impact everyone. So that's up in the air. And the downtown maintenance contract is up, and there was complaints on the plantings last year on 12 Mile, and this year they're planning on having different plants put in, because there's more sun on one side than on the other. So in order to compensate for that, and that's about it.
Environmental?
Nothing to report from environmental.
Okay. Council meeting met on February the 1st. I guess the important thing that reflects us is that the PUD was passed by council, goes to a second reading in March, and of course there's all of the contract stuff that's got to be executed. There's just one council meeting in March, right?
Yeah.
Because of the election. Municipal election, or not a municipal, the primary election for the thing. Also, they did a presentation for the Parks and Rec master plan was also presented to the council at the last meeting. And then, as most of you know, that this past week we had the candidates in for the city manager. There was an open house on Friday evening, and residents had an opportunity to talk to the 4 candidates. I was there and had an opportunity to talk to them. And then on Saturday, council started about 9:30 in the morning, and it ran to almost 6 o'clock in the evening, but they had the 4 candidates in and interviewed the 4 candidates. I was present for a large portion of it. Mr. Marty Smith was also present for a portion of it, and it's very interesting. I found it fascinating. I don't know how Marty thought about it, but I found it kind of fascinating. After you've met them in one-on-one, and then you sort of hear them with a set of questions that had been prepared, I guess, by the Michigan Municipal League, and with council's input, they ought to ask them a whole series of questions, and the way they presented themselves and answered them, you could begin to see where things were going. If I think most of you know that they are going to offer, they have made a proposal to the city administrator of Lathrop Village as a proposal for the new city manager. But they got to go through a lot of investigation and things before it becomes official, right?
That's my understanding.
My understanding too. Marty, you want to contribute anything about what we?
I left at 9 o'clock to wash the car, and I stopped by here for a few minutes and got home about 4 p.m. Saturday. I heard all 4 of them. And it was interesting to hear the same questions asked over and over in the same order to the 4 applicants. I missed Friday night. I wanted to go, but I was not able to. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
And,
I found it fascinating. It's very interesting. So that's
it was interesting.
That's what's been happening with your city council. So with that all said and done, I guess we'll run around the room and see if anybody's got anything to say. Anything, Marty?
I found this parklet thing interesting. And it's, I would imagine everybody's thinking the same thing along Coolidge. And it's, not to swing the dead cat again, but it's screaming for the 3-lane Coolidge, something like this. And,
Amen.
and I, apparently a few other people thought that too. But it goes back to what do we want our street and our community to be, and everybody knows how I feel, but some of this is pretty extravagant, but I see there's some opportunities for Coolidge. But again, it goes back to 3 lanes versus 4. This would not work with the situation we have now, which was brought up in your email, I believe. So, anyway, that's just my opinion.
Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Vanson, for providing the article. It was an interesting read. I do note that one of the recommendations in the material referred to a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on streets where
It's from
the
Grand
sort of
Rapids,
thing
that's
is
their parklet manual, yep.
erected, and I'm with Commissioner Smith all the way on the need to, I would refer update Coolidge. I think it's an outdated road that badly needs to be updated. Just a couple of other things. I was at the city manager candidate open house, and I commend the council for the way they've handled this whole process. I think it's been very open, very public. I enjoyed talking to the candidates, and I think I'm pretty optimistic about the future, the immediate future for our city, based on the results of the candidate selection process. So we'll see how that goes. And just one other thing, and this is sort of for the benefit of anybody on here that doesn't know, and anybody watching at home. We do our best to encourage recycling within Berkeley, and the SACRA, they require that if you're going to recycle corrugated cardboard, that you break it down before leaving it at the curb. A lot of people leave it out at the curb amongst their other recyclables, and it ends up getting left at the curb and then put into the regular trash, which, from my perspective, is disheartening. So I'm just reminding people to break down their corrugated cardboard, or they can do like I do. I'm way too lazy to break down all that cardboard, so I don't do it. I let it pile up, and I just take it out to Sacra when I have other errands to do out in that vicinity. And most of us in Berkeley find ourselves out at Target, out at Kroger, out at Meijer. It's easy to combine that trip. You're not burning extra hydrocarbons, and for people that don't regularly visit that facility, well, I think it's a rather interesting place to go. So just a reminder, show some civic spirit and recycle. Thanks.
Ms. Pop?
Nope, I don't have anything else right now.
We read?
I'm good.
Mr. Morrell?
You know, I make frequent trips to Sacra, and I will point out that if you take your cardboard boxes there, you do not have to break them down at the recycling center. You can just throw them in the can, and they're happy as a clam.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I go there a lot because I work with the library to take their discards to the recycling. That's all.
Ms. Shado?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Ms. Buckler? Mr. Tangari?
Just support the comments of Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Richardson regarding Coolidge. And the parklet thing is definitely an interesting phenomenon that's been spreading pretty rapidly over the last 10 or so years around the country. And you can see it in Birmingham. A lot of restaurants do it up there. If you're curious how it works. But there is also an International Parking Day. I believe it's usually in August. And it's kind of a one-day thing where you convert as many on-street parking spaces as you can into a little parklet. And that might be one kind of fun way to experiment a little bit with it and see what it might look like.
Well, I had talked with the chamber about, the whole parklet thing and with regard to Coolidge, and, the chamber, when I talked with Roseanne Nicolai, and she said, well, that sounds great. I think, you know, I think as far as Coolidge goes, perhaps, you know, if, whether it's an art bash alternative or a parking day alternative, if, you know, the merchants on Coolidge, you know, apply for something and want to do an event, I think, you know, that's the way we would handle it through the city, is it'd be a weekend event or something like that, and I think it'd be a really cool contest to see all the different parklets that got constructed. It could be, you know, an alternative art bash kind of thing.
Ms. Vanson, anything?
No, thank you, guys.
I don't have anything else, but I would like to just comment on the way the city council did handle the search for the new city manager. I thought it was very open. There was a lot of participation with residents and folks, and I thought it went very well, and I think they're all to be complimented for that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Morrell, seconded by Commissioner Shado. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.